Hey guys, welcome back to the Joy of Wrenching. My name is Les. I'm your friendly neighborhood mechanic. And today in the shop we got this gorgeous 2021 Mercedes GLE 350. And the problem that it has is that it's got an error message coming up on the dash. It says this right here. It says, check brake pads, see owner's manual. If you see this error message come up on your Mercedes, most of the time it means that your brake pads are worn out. That's the case on this 2021 GLE 350, and I want to show you today how to change the front brake pads on this car. It'll be the same for many late model Mercedes, and I want to show you all the tools, all the tips and tricks so that I can save you the time and money and you can do it yourself. Come along and let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about the tools and supplies that you're going to need in order to do this job. The first thing you're going to find out is if you have these type of lug bolts or lug nuts on your Mercedes that kind of look like a flower shape, you're going to need a special 17 millimeter Mercedes flower shaped socket to fit on that. Now, I say that, but a normal 17 millimeter socket will fit on here. The problem is that these normal sockets can round these over and make them look ugly. And you know, these Mercedes, they're nice vehicles. You want to keep it looking nice, so get the right socket. And I'll put links in the description for these things. I'm not sponsored by any of them, but just so that you can get to it easily. If you do purchase it, I get an affiliate link through it. It helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. So do it if you'd like to, but get the right parts. So let's talk about the other tools and supplies you're going to need. So come right here and take a look. So in order to get these brake pads replaced, obviously you're going to need some brake pads. I like the ceramic ones because they put out less brake dust. And you know, that's really annoying. Again, with a really nice car, you don't want all that black brake dust all over your wheels all the time. So I like to use ceramic pads. Power Stop here is a good brand for that. And I also like to choose a brake pad set that comes with new hardware. These stainless steel clips, oftentimes they may be missing, they may be misshapen, and so just get you some new ones. It doesn't typically cost any more to get the set with the clips. In addition to the brake pads, you're going to need some brake grease, some Loctite. Blue is just fine. We're just going to little dab is all we're going to use of that. A 15 millimeter socket, a large pry bar or screwdriver. And then once we get those pads off, we're going to have to compress the caliper. Now, there's lots of different ways to do that. I like this type of compressor, and I'll show how this is used. But these things work really slick. And again, I'll have links in the description for all of these things. And just in case there's some mess in there, we might need a little wire brush just to clean some of that junk off. Now, the Mercedes also has these sensors. This is what's telling the car why it needs new brake pads. And so we're going to replace these sensors. Now, some cars have a sensor on both the front wheels. This car only has one on the passenger front wheel. So just be aware that your car may need one or two of these brake wear indicators. All right, so obviously we're going to get started by removing the wheel, and I've got my special socket. Now, your car should come with one of these. It might be squirreled away somewhere in the back of underneath the spare tire or something like that, the special socket. But if you can't find one, just buy you one. They're not expensive. And of course, European cars, they have lug studs instead of lug nuts. All right, so one of the first things that I like to do, and you don't have to do this, is I like to clean up the brakes themselves. There's a lot of that brake dust. You can see it all over the place, and it just makes a really big mess when you're working on a car. And so I'm going to go ahead and spray this off with some brake cleaner. And you see, you can turn the wheels so that you can get better access to everything. And I'm just going to hose this down with a little brake clean. I've got a catch basin here to get all of the nasty drippings and stuff, but it'll really clean this area up and make it a lot more enjoyable. And again, this is the joy of wrenching. We want to keep that joy in what we're doing. and a clean work environment is part of that. So one good thing about just doing the front brakes on the GLE 350 here, we do not have to put the car into service mode. If you're working on the rear brakes on these cars, the parking brake is electronic, and so you do have to put it in service mode so that it pulls that electronic parking brake back out of the way before you compress the pistons. On the front of these cars, you do not have to have the car in service mode. It just saves you a little bit of time and headache, because sometimes getting to that service mode can be a little tricky. So you don't need a lift in order to do this job. You can do it on jack stands and jacks in your driveway or in your garage. I happen to have a lift. It's taken me 50 years to get it, so I love it and I'm going to use it. But one other reason I really like using the lift is so that I can show you guys and get you the camera and the lighting in to all those nitty-gritty details that are going to save you time and headaches. One of those is right here. So when you do a brake job on one of these late model Mercedes, the way that the car knows it's time for brake pads is through this little sensor right here. This is a brake wear indicator sensor. And we're going to have to unplug this in order to do the brake job. The way that you unplug this sensor is this blue connector here is plugged into this black larger rectangle. You can pull and wiggle all you want here, but it won't come out. The reason is that it's held in place with this little spring keeper. And so you're going to need another tool. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. You can use a paper clip or whatever, a little screwdriver, but I'm using the pick here. And you want to get in here and just release that spring by pulling towards yourself, and then hold that. And then over on this end, you want to pick this up and then kind of pull and wiggle this little spring a little bit, and it should come free. There we go. Come free like that out of the back side. And this is what it looks like. And you see there's kind of a weird U shape there. That U shape goes down. And then these little arms fit into these slots right here when it's in place. Now that this keeper spring, save that, you're going to need that thing back. So put it somewhere safe. But now that this is out of the way, we can grab this in and pull it straight out, and the sensor will come unplugged. And we'll just leave this hanging here for now. We're ready to move on to the next step. Now that we have our brake wear indicator unplugged and just kind of hanging out like here, we can go ahead and unbolt our caliper from the caliper bracket. It's held on with two 15mm bolts in this case. So we'll come back here and we'll just break these free. That one's free. Get this one broke free. There we go. Now, you don't have to use an electric ratchet if you don't want to or you don't have one, but I like to because it saves time. So there's one of the bolts. And notice it's got a little bit of pink or red Loctite on it. So when we put these bolts back in, we're going to use a little bit of Loctite too, just to hold it in place. Let's get this upper bolt now. There we go. Let's set those aside. All right. Now normally, you can just grab your brake caliper and pull it away. But in the case of these Mercedes, they put a glue almost on the surface of the caliper to the original brake pad. And that glue makes it really hard for these to come off. And so I want to show you a little trick. This is where the big screwdriver or pry bar comes in handy. If you're unable, once you get those two bolts loose, to get this free, get your screwdriver or pry bar, come right in here, and then give it a little pry towards the outside, and you'll break the glue. You see, you look right in there, you see all that shiny glue? This glue is gluing your brake pad to the caliper and making it so that you can't get this thing off of here. There we go. So now just give it a little pry, and now we can pull it away. So now that you've broke that glue free that's holding that pad on, and that glue is really only there from the factory. This car has 65,000 miles. This is the first brake job, obviously, that once you put on aftermarket pads, you probably won't have to pry it off like that. But just know that with the OEM pads, they will be, really sticky. So now that that glue is freed up, we can wiggle and pull straight back. And you'll see that the little sensor wire will just pull right through that hole there. And we need to hang our brake caliper here somewhere safe. So I've got a little bungee, and I'm just going to put it up here somewhere, put the other end in here. That way, just takes some of the stress off of our brake hose and especially off our electrical wiring right here. Let me show you. You don't want it to pull too much on the brake hose or the electrical wiring. So the bungee, you know, just hang it up somewhere where it's going to be safe and keep that stress free. And now we can go ahead and start removing our brake pads. Okay, so now that we've got our caliper out of the way here, hanging safely and not putting any stress on anything, we can go ahead and start removing our brake pads. Okay, so this rear brake pad, well, all we're just going to do is grab it and we're going to slide it back, and you'll see that it slides out of these little channels. Just wiggle and push. There you go, and it comes free. And just make sure that these little clips come out with it and the sensor stays attached to it. And by the way, look right there. See how that sensor is worn through? This is how the car knows it's time to change the brake pads. It'll start making continuity with that metal rotor, and it'll send a signal and say, hey, time to change your brake pads. And that's kind of a nice feature. You know, a lot of sensors are kind of not super useful. This one I kind of like. Hey guys, just a quick break in the program real quick. I just wanted to say thank you guys for tuning in. If you're enjoying this sort of thing, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't sign you up for junk mail or anything like that. It just means that YouTube will know that you guys are enjoying this, and they'll try and show it to more people, so we can just, you know, reach a greater audience. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the action. All right, so likewise, we'll go ahead and pull this front pad off. And so again, you just grab it, wiggle and pull, and off she comes. And again, it too has these little these little clips associated with it, and you can really see all that. And it's kind of a tacky glue that's on here from the factory. So now our pads are out of the way. This is a good time to inspect your rotor. If your rotor has some deep grooves, like a really bad record player, or if this outside lip on your rotor is really large and you can run your finger and it kind of jumps up over a lip here at the outside edge, you might think about replacing these rotors. And that's real easy too. All we have to do to replace the rotors is remove two, come back here, I'll show you, is remove these two 21 millimeter bolts, and this whole caliper bracket slides off at that point. And then over here on this side, you just remove this T30 retaining screw, and then the rotor can be popped off. A new rotor put on, retained with the screw, put your caliper bracket in place, and then you're back to this stage. And at this stage, we want to go ahead and replace, remember I said, try to get a kit with the brakes that has the hardware. This is where the hardware is. So look right here, and you'll see these clips. And what we want to do is just get underneath that thing, pry it up, and it'll come loose like that. Get it out of the way, and then clean the surfaces where that was attached at. And just do them one at a time. This way you don't get any of them kind of mixed up. But in this case, all of them look the same. Some vehicles have different ones. So just find one of the new clips that looks like the one you took off, and you want to put it in here, just like so, and just push it down, and just make sure that it sits flush down in here, just like that. Now that's replaced, and you can take the old one and throw it away. And we're going to do the same thing for all 4 of these points. So again, you just grab the thing, little ear, pull it down, use whatever you want. You can use a screwdriver. I'm just using the end of my little wire brush here. Once it's out of the way, clean up the surfaces. Sometimes there'll be a lot of brake dust and grease and things like that caked up in there. Get you a new one, put it up in place. It's best to latch the front first. See these little 2 ears? Put those on first, hold it in place, and then push it up, and it'll lock. All right, got 2 more back here. Do here, pull that free, get this one up and out, clean our surfaces real good. These upper ones don't collect as much gunk as the lower ones. So you'll see that these lower ones have a lot more brake dust and grease flying off of them as I clean it here. All right, here's our last two. Just like I showed you, put the front ears on there and then slide it down and push it all the way till it's flush. Okay, upper one, put the front ears on, push it till it's flush. That's it. This hardware has been replaced, and these are stainless. They should last, you know, a long, long time. All right, now that we've got our hardware replaced, the next thing we need to do is address our glide pins or slide pins here. These should move nice and freely backwards and forwards, and these are a little gummy. They're just a little bit too much resistance. So what you can do is just hold the bellows with one finger and pull that pin out with the other. You see that grease on there? It's from the factory, this white grease. It's kind of gummy. I know you guys can't see that, but maybe you can see it's kind of tacky. And so you can wipe off all that old grease. A lot of times it'll be real black and nasty. And this is where some new fresh brake slide pin grease. You can use Sil Glide, whatever you want to use. Just put a light coat on. Don't put a big old glob on the end of it. You know, just a light coat on the outside. Go in and out. Give it a twist motion. Make sure that moves nice and smooth. And then give it a push. And that bellows will snap back on there, just like that. And that's ready to go. And we'll do the same for this upper one. Just hold the bellows back with one hand or one finger and pull out the pin. Wipe off the old grease. Give it a nice light coating just on the outside of the pin. Stick her back in. Round and around she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. Push, pops right in. Nice movement, nice and smooth. That's going to have good use for a long time. Now it's time for our new brake pads to go in. So we're going to start with the outer brake pad. You can start with the inner, it don't matter. So here's the outer that came off of there with all the goo on the back of it. But notice it's got these little clips attached to it. And so the new brake pads, just make sure you get the new brake pad out, match it up, that they're the right size. And notice that they don't have these little clips, at least not yet. They do come in the box though, and you want to make sure that you put them on. So if you look at these ears on the new brake pads, you'll see that one side has this little divot in it. That is where this portion, this clip is going to snap in. So we're going to take this clip and we're going to take this little ear and we're going to slide it up into place right here, and that will stay there. And on the other side, same thing. Look for that little divot. Take your clip, take it in there, slide it in place. Now this brake pad is ready to go in place. But before we put them in place, we want to put just a real super light coating of this brake grease on all these surfaces that are going to ride inside of those stainless clips. Now, in order to install this brake pad up against our rotor, you want to come in at an angle like this. Might be easier for you to see from this side here. We want to come in at an angle, and I'm going to put these clips, I'm going to start these clips into these little holes there. And I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to push back. As I do so, these clips are starting to compress. And then I'm going to rotate it, and it'll go right into that spot. So again, you're pushing back into that thing and rotating it flat. Now that's nice and flush against our rotor here, and so we are good to install our inside pad. All right, so now it's time to put our inner pad on. So here's the old inner pad, and you can see it has those little springs on the ears, and it also has this brake wear indicator or sensor. And so we're going to have to replace that as well. So get your pad out that's got that weird little notch in it. Okay, that's going to be your matching pad. See, like that. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and, just like the old one, or just like the outside one, we'll take these clips and we're going to look for that little notch, and that's where this thing goes on, just like so. That's that one. Let's get the other one, the other clip on. There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to put this in place, and then we're going to install, well, it doesn't really matter. We can do it either way. So it might be just easier to show you this way. So get your new sensor, and you'll see that the little stick or whatever, the sensor actually fits into a hole right there. And then this metal spring will go into that clip. So just slide that thing into that hole and push it, and it'll click and it'll stay there. See, that doesn't want to fall out. And that's how you install that sensor. Let's go ahead and install this pad back here. And just like the front one, we're going to put a very, very, very light coat of a little bit of grease just to help it slide in place and stay moving. And we're going to, just like the other one, we're going to come in here at an angle. I'm setting the back of these ears into those holes, and I'm pushing backwards and then rotating it to go flush. There you go. So that pad is now in place, and we are ready to compress our caliper next. So we're fixing to compress our caliper pistons back in to make way for those new thicker pads. But as we do that, the brake fluid is going to be forced back up to the reservoir. And so you need to make sure that there's room in that reservoir for that brake fluid to rise and without it spilling over the top of the reservoir, because brake fluid is really corrosive and it will get down all over the place and it can eat paint away and cause all kinds of problems. This car, because we're doing just the front brakes, we didn't have to put it into the service mode. And so it's safe to work on the front brakes without putting the car in service mode. We're going to go ahead and I want to show you where that brake fluid reservoir is, and we're going to check that level and watch that level as we squeeze those pistons back in. So let me show you how to find your brake fluid reservoir on these things. So obviously we'll go under the hood, and as with most cars, it's over here, but you can't see it. What we've got here is this panel that kind of blocks it. And if you look right down in here, there's these two little locking tabs, and it's got a little thing that shows you that it needs to be turned. So just turn these locking tabs to where they're in this orientation, and then grab right here along the side and also right here along the front, and just pull up and then pull towards the front of the vehicle. And here is our brake reservoir, just like every other brake, most every other car. And you can see the level is in here, about halfway up the reservoir. And so I'm going to go ahead and just crack that open. It allows for, any air pressure or whatever to not build up in there, in case that's a good seal. And we're going to start compressing our caliper. And as we do so, that brake fluid level is going to rise a little bit. And we want to keep an eye on that and make sure it doesn't come up too high. So let's go ahead and let's compress these pistons back into the caliper. Again, this is an aluminum caliper. It's really nice and lightweight. And I've just moved it out here, and I'm just sort of resting it here. There's lots of different ways to compress the pistons back into a caliper. I like these tools here. I'll put links in the description to them. But it's a ratcheting system, and you just set it in place here, and then you ratchet it. And as you do so, it forces the pistons back in, and it's got good contact on both of the pistons, so it's not just pushing one while the other's popping out or something. And so we'll just ratchet it back in, and as you see, these things are going back into their bores, and it's forcing the fluid that's in here through the lines and back all the way up to our reservoir. So let's go over there and take a look at that reservoir and make sure that we're not filling up too much. So come over here. And we want to take a look and see where our fluid level is. And it's still, I know it's a little hard for you to see because it's really clean, but it's still only halfway up that reservoir. So we're safe to continue to compress our pistons in. All right, so now that we've checked and made sure that the fluid is not overfilling our reservoir, we're safe to continue compressing our pistons in. And you just do this until those pistons are all the way back into their bores. There it is. It's a positive stop, and then you can change the direction and loosen it up a little bit. Slide it out, and you can see that those pistons are back into their bores. All right, so we got our new pads in place. Caliper pistons pushed back in. We can go ahead and take our hanger out of the way. Don't want to leave that hanging up there. And just make sure that you don't twist these cables up. Make sure that they're oriented and routed correctly. And all we have to do is I like to come through here, grab our sensor wire, sort of aim it through this hole right there, put the back part of the caliper on, front part on, and notice it won't go all the way home because these slide pins are sticking out. So just push it in a little bit with your finger like that, and then it should be able to go right there. And then grab your retaining bolt with a little dab of Loctite. That's all it needs. And then start these by hand. You'll feel when it grabs those threads. There it goes. All right. Here's the other one. These are 15 millimeter, and we want to tighten these to about 25 foot-pounds or so. So they don't get super gorilla tight. All right, so I've got these sucked down. We'll tighten these up to about 25 foot-pounds, or one ooga-dooga for you guys that believe it that way. There we go. And that Loctite will really help that to stay in place. All right, now everything's in place. We've got our new pads. We've got a nice sliding caliper again. And now we need to replace the wiring for our little brake wear sensor here. This needs to get plugged back in right there. All right, so now we're ready to plug in our new brake wear sensor. So here's where that little spring comes back, okay? So make sure you find that thing, you need it. And if you remember, the spring has kind of a U shape on this end. That U shape, that divot goes down. And so just take that spring, take that U shape and set it in place like so, and then hold it with one finger. And then you can take the little ears, these little legs, and spread them out, and they'll snap into place where they go. Now that that spring is in place, it will catch this when we plug it in. You see it's got these little ramp-shaped connector pieces. So you just plug this thing in like that, and it doesn't matter, you can't do it upside down, it doesn't really matter one way or the other. And push it home, and you'll feel it click. There's a satisfying click. Give it a little tug, make sure it won't come back out. And as long as you felt it click, which I did, you're plugged in. That is ready to go. So our sensor's re-plugged in, and like I said, it doesn't matter if you plug it in this way or turn it upside down and plug it in that way. It goes in either way. So once you have compressed those pistons and those calipers back to make room for the new pads, we need to get in the car and fill those caliper pistons back up. The way that we do that is just to get in and push the brake. The car does not have to be on. Just come in here with your foot and push the brake down, and you'll feel it's real spongy the first time. Let it up, push it down again, and you'll feel it get really hard. Once that pedal gets hard, then it has filled those calipers back up with brake fluid. And now we need to check and make sure that the fluid level is still good in our reservoir. And so here's the fluid level right there, and there's minimum and there's maximum. It's good. So we can tighten our cap, and we are good to go. And we'll go ahead and replace this cover. Now let me show you how to put this little cover back over the top of your brake reservoir. So this is the rear end, and you want to slide this rear end of the thing into this little slot right between this line and that line. So you'll see that there's kind of it's got to go under that one right there on top of the other one. There we go. Okay. And then this front part, we need this piece right here. Come around on this side. I think it's easier to show it that way. This piece is open. You see there's a gap right here. We need that to fit over this piece of foam, and then come on down, and then right through here you'll see that there is a little black tab. That black tab has to go in that hole right there. So wiggle it over until that black tab lines up with that hole. Once that is lined up, then you can lock these two locking tabs. And when it's in the right place, this rubber is over that rubber. This little bit of rubber here, you can tuck it back behind there if you want, no big deal. But then this back edge will be underneath that lip right there, and it's back in place. All right, so let me put the wheel back on. Grab this thing in. It's kind of heavy sometimes, but we're going to set it right in place. And there's a little lip inside of the center of this wheel, and it'll sit onto the hub. And grab one of your lug nuts. You can rotate this and look through. Come look through the lug nut holes or the lug bolt holes. You can rotate it until you line up with the threads, and then take one of your bolts and get it started into those threads by hand. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to suck it up. In other words, I'm going to tighten these up just snug, but I'm not going to torque it with my impact. This just to save time. Just tighten it up a little bit and stop. I'm not putting an impact on it. I'm just making them go all the way in. And I like these kind here that have the rubber on them. That way it doesn't nick or cause any damage to these beautiful wheels. All right, so we secured our wheel, just snugged it up. You always want to torque your wheels, guys. If a wheel falls off while you're going down the road or somebody's going down the road, that could be very dangerous. So the front wheels, or the wheels on this car, they get tightened to 107 foot-pounds or 145 Newton meters. You want to do a crisscross pattern. Make sure it's nice and evenly secured to the vehicle. I'm going to do the other four, or the other three, and we'll call it good. Wheels are torqued, new brake pads installed, new brake sensor installed. Now that error message on the dash, that check brake pads, see operator's manual, that message right there, that'll go away automatically once you replace that brake sensor and your pads. So don't worry about trying to reset that. This, as you can see, not that hard of a job. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. Especially if you watch this, hopefully you learn a few tricks to make it easier on you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. All of the tools and things that I used, I'll have links in the description. If you want to purchase through there, it doesn't cost you anything, but it does help our channel. I appreciate that as well. Y'all have a wonderful week, and God bless.